Baby, go. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 255, I'm very lucky to have Michael Piggott on the podcast. Yes, I got it right.
Thank you.
There you go. He is the CEO of, is it Lootfeed?
Yes,
And yes, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day. Taking one day at a time. Yeah.
In the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful city. If anyone's listening, you haven't been there, please go. It's actually beautiful.
Mm, indeed. One day, I was on the East Coast many a time. Like many a person from my summer camp went to Philadelphia, but I did not take the opportunity. I may have missed out. Right. Yes, all I would have most already done would be several times running up and down those stairs like it was Rocky. it's like yeah, and
That's like the state. Everyone wants to do that, and I encourage you. That area, and I live near that area, is beautiful. It's very beautiful. Well, what's interesting to me on the East Coast is like New York, Boston, and what else? I feel like New York and Boston get like if you're visiting the East Coast, those and DC, those tend to get the big, a lot of love for international travelers and people from the Midwest, and Philly gets looked over, and it shouldn't. No,
all I've got to say is, yeah, have I been to Boston? Yes. Have I been to New York? Yes. Have I been to DC?
Yes.
Yes. No, come on now. I've been to Baltimore. It's like, hey.
Yeah, another nice city. I love Baltimore too. I love Baltimore. I'm actually the interesting thing. I'm actually from New York City, so I was born and raised, lived there most of my life. So I was big proponent of New York City, and still am.
Yes.
I have still family there, and I love my city where I grew up. But when you leave the city, when you go live elsewhere, and you start to look at the world from a smaller city perspective, or just a mid-sized city perspective, your perspective on the world changes, and I think in a good way. You start to realize not everyone is out to get you.
Because this is the thing, New York City, good God, New York City, coming like the classic tropes they talk about. When you come out in New York City, wherever you do, don't ever look up because that's the thing you can't help but do. And when I think of New York, Manhattan was my sort of main domain. So basically from Greenwich Village all the way up to Harlem. And this is the thing, I got to say, in Harlem, they have one of the most beautiful McDonald's you'll ever see. Okay. But it comes with this weird juxtaposition, because if you go to the KFC across the road, it's it's the scrattiest KFC, this thick bulletproof glass. It must be 2 inches thick. You put your money in one slot, and you take it, and you take your food from another slot. And it was most beautiful McDonald's compared to the most broke KFC I've ever seen in my life. But but what part of New York were you in?
So I was born in Brooklyn, East Flatbush, and I grew up in South Ozone Park, which is 15 minutes away from JFK Airport. And right next to Jamaica or South Jamaica. I'm very, that's where I mostly grew up, and actually went back to after college. I went to upstate New York, Rochester Institute of Technology, and came back down and actually lived in Queens Village. So I lived in Queens a lot of my life, a bunch, very long time. So I have a lot of love for Queens. Despite that, my family was, I would say my father's side is they're Yankee fans, despite all of that.
You say that with a little bit of a disdain in your mouth. What happened, man? What did the Yankees do to you? How did they destroy your childhood? I'm sensing something.
No. I say that as growing up in Queens, you're supposed to like the Mets. You're supposed to be a Mets fan. And I just was not because, or I'll be honest, I'm not a huge sports fan. I'm bigger into MMA and boxing, but I had to sort of inherit what my grandfather and father's sports team. I had to. I couldn't just deviate from the plan, you know?
You could pay for the plan.
Yeah.
I need to go to these family dinners. I'll be disowned. You could call me a Republican or a liberal, but like, but not to support the team. Oh my God! It's like, you know, son of mine.
But the even funnier thing is, I say all that to say, I don't even watch, honestly. The big sports that I watch: MMA, boxing.
Right.
MMA more than boxing. Those are the sports I care about the most. Literally, the Super Bowl could be going on, and me and my wife and I would probably just order wings and pizza and watch a movie. And that's how funny it is. With like, yeah, that is how disconnected I am from the sports teams. But I still have allegiance to them because, you know, my father and my grandfather followed them. So I feel some sort of allegiance. You know.
Yeah, I feel like if I go into this any deeper, like you will be disowned by your family. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to bring that pain down on you. It's like, yeah, I did one little podcast and that was it. I couldn't go back home. They looked at me just like, so all this time you were faking it. That time when the Yankees won the World Series.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. Like, okay. Like, apart from faking being a Yankees fan, like, yeah, meant to be a Mets fan, like, yeah, that doesn't interest you. How did you get into the realm of technology? Were you running from something?
You know, it's very funny. I would say I was always a big person who read sci-fi. Was always interested in PCs. My stepfather, um, he was, I believe at the time, a project manager, and he was in software development. And I think documentation around software. So I always had a decent, I always had PCs around me, and he was always on a PC. And indirectly, I think I sort of just not fell into it, but I sort of just inherited some of, you know, because he myself, yeah, I was always around my stepfather. I sort of inherited like, hey, you know, like getting to know how PCs work. Um, I would say it wasn't until was it junior high that I started aspiring to at least build something as far as like software.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that's when like I started that was sort of instilled in me, and I sort of like wanted to see, like, I remember like it's gonna sound funny. I remember I don't know. I don't want to. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say these things without sounding like. I remember finding ways to. No, I won't even say that.
Come on now, just lean into it.
I don't want to say that. I will say this. At the time when I was younger, I didn't want to pay for music and movies and other things. So I found ways to get these things. And as you learn how to get these things, you learn more about software and just how things work, like on, you know, on the browser, and generally how things work. I'll put it like that.
Look, all I got to say is, so you lived the Captain Jack lifestyle.
I wouldn't even, maybe not Captain Jack. Maybe I was like the first mate, maybe. Of Captain Jack. Maybe.
Let me see. Like, okay, if you would still the first mate on a Captain Jack ship, that still makes you like a member of the crew.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But to make a very long story short, I aspire, like, you know, I aspired over time to build. I won't even, it's really, you know, it's really hard to pinpoint it for me, because it was always, for me, I always wanted to be a creative person and create things. I love Star Wars. I loved comics, Marvel and DC, Marvel more than DC, to be honest. I loved just building these universes and or building, like, figuring out technology that would solve problems. And I was like, I want to do both of these things, and I want to figure out how to do these things. And I also was like, hey, I don't see people that look like me doing these things. And I want to, if not be one of the first, or be some of the people, or be part of that group of people that inspire the next generation to do these things. And I think, and I look around now, there's more people that look like me in these roles, but still not enough, in my opinion. And so part of me was, part of me still aspires to, inspire that next generation and also build technology that really solves problems for people. So that's kind of, So that's kind of what led me to answer your question.
Okay, no, this is the thing. Like this is with regards to the sort of realm of people getting into tech. It's how can I put it? It seemed like how old are you? About
I'm 34.
34. Okay, right. If you throw back your mind sort of 10 years ago, like maybe a little bit earlier than that, 15 years ago, getting into tech, you had to like have, well, one, you had to basically have an idea of what was going on. And then basically doing the equipment side of it wasn't cheap, let's just say. Like by the time you get a computer, like basically by the time you sort of like invest in either a computer program or whatnot, some of it free, some of it paid for, quite a lot of it these days. You had to be, I would say you had to game the system for like quite a lot of people if you couldn't afford it to sort of get your first run on that ladder. It's you know what I mean? Like with getting more people and being more inclusive, eh, back then, no, I would say it was very hard. And now I would say these days, if you've got yourself a decent iPad or something like this, you might be able to do some sort of low key programming with regards to that. And like the sort of knowing the realms of possibilities, what can become out of that. I think it was one of those things people didn't really talk about it, if you get what I mean. You were in a very fortunate position where you kind of went, oh, wait, there's this, and oh, wait, there's that. But now I think the conversation is being had more, and people are seeing the opportunities which can come from the world of tech. I don't know. Would you agree or?
No, I definitely think there is a lot more access to technology. One of the things I forgot to mention is Tech TV was my favorite TV show to watch. Like I used to watch that. I used to watch Screensavers. And I used to watch a couple shows, and then they would like troubleshoot things and like do different things. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, oh, you can speed up your computer this way. And I would look it up, like, oh, you could like. So I was always sort of curious, and I've always been a curious person. So I was that TV. What was great about Tech TV is they had the technology, they had video games, they had all these different cool shows. They even had like battle bots and stuff. It was like really cool. It was such a cool TV show, and I miss it. I've heard it's sort of back, and I got to check out the YouTube, I guess. But to go back to your question, go back to your statement, I do believe generally people have more access to learning about this information.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I think I was talking about this with someone else actually recently, the only thing that where I get a little cautious is saying, okay, people have access, is even now, some of the poorer people that live in this country, United States, I would say, still don't have the greatest access to the internet in this country. And I'm not even talking about developing world, which is a whole nother thing that people are trying to actively tackle. And so I want to believe, yes, it's better than it was when I was 10 years ago. I want to believe that, but there's also these challenges of like people today still having issues with access to that. And that I hope within my lifetime, people in everywhere have access to that information and can, not just access like Facebook or something, but like really access, courses, like things that would enrich their lives, and they don't necessarily have to go to a university for, if you follow what I'm saying.
No, I do. I do. And like, this is the thing. One of the things which was highlighted, and I think this goes like to like a number of countries around the world. No one I can go, oh, we had it like lit. But the sort of, okay, the internet, for me, the way I see it, it should be a utility. It should be one of those things which everyone has access to, because soon as you don't have it, there are a number of things which you get closed off from it. And like it can sort of determine how you work, where you work, and basically like just how you learn. Like this is the thing. I know there was some like cases where like over in the States where kids had to go to like a local McDonald's just to get onto the internet. I think in the UK, I think what they did, if you didn't have like broadband internet, they went, okay, like their internet service providers went, you can have it. Don't quote me on this. You can have it for free while this is going on. And they just let it run like that. But it just shows if you don't have the internet, how your life can be impacted by a technology which is now like 30 years old and in its modern form in such a fundamental way. And like, you know what I mean? Getting that knowledge, it's not easy, but you know what I mean? Like even for sort of poor like families there and like the information is there, it's now how can you access it, you know?
Yeah, no, I think we're yes, I agree. I'm trying to elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying. It's I think there's going back to what you're saying. I think there's a ton of information that can transform lives. It's just we're still having problems giving that access to a lot more people. I know some, how do I say this? I had some interesting conversations with, and this goes with my company, with some people from Puerto Rico and how they were throwing like video game tournaments.
Yeah.
And I was just having conversations about like what's the internet like over there, and hearing how much of a struggle it was in certain locations of Puerto Rico, and I'm like, damn, like they're U.S. territory. Their infrastructure, at least my eyes, should be better. And like me being an American who's grew up in New York City, you know what I mean? Like I always imagined like at least our territories had better infrastructure. And like after having conversations with them, they're like, no, it's still pretty bad out here. I'm like, wow. And then you go some places in the South, you'll have those conversations like, oh no, the internet connectivity is not the greatest, like, or even access to it is still not the greatest. Or even arguably some inner cities, you could have that conversation as well. And so I agree with you. It should be on the what do you call it? Like there's food, water, shelter, that the triangle. I believe internet access should totally be there, because it will it transforms your life. Just being able to access information and how would I say this? Being able to access information and being able to apply it to your life. Start us understanding trends, understanding like how things work, and understanding how the world works. You can Google almost anything, and there will be an explanation, someone explaining it. Whether the explanation is good or bad is arguable. That's arguable. Whether or not the FBI is going to be watching you is arguable too.
There's certain things you should not put into your browser. Why is that? You will end up on the register and might not be able to fly. That's what I'm going to say.
With the exception of those things, I think we live in, I like to believe we live in these times in which that can transform someone's life. And so, that's agreeing with you there. And to touch a little bit on something, touch a tiny bit on this.
Yeah.
And to know that there are some people who don't have access to it, whether they've been incarcerated and things like that, it's to me a travesty to hear that, because my wife is a civil rights attorney, so we're going to touch on this a little bit. And she tells me there are places where a person is incarcerated for whatever reason, whether they did or not, whether like it's irregardless. They're in jail, right, or in prison. They don't have access to the internet at all. So you spend 5, 6, 10, whatever the case may be, you spend that time away, from even potential, like just having access to the internet can improve you as a person. So you're ripping that away from someone who's already isolated. We can debate about why they're isolated, all that stuff. I'm not even going into that. It's just, to me, minimum human beings, especially in the United States, but anywhere, should have access to internet. That's how I feel. They should be able to at least go on and Google and learn and just be around and just be, oh, I didn't even know this. Oh, I didn't know this, how this engine worked. Oh, that's how the internet really works. Oh, I didn't know there were like lines underwater connecting countries via that. I didn't know this. Let me Google, like, that to me is fundamentally what humans. As a human, as a curious human, I believe that like to strip someone from that is inhumane. That's how I view it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like, this is the thing when it comes to the sort of realms of like, yeah, a prisoner not having access. Look, this is the thing. I would say this. I would say when it comes to prisoners and stuff, maybe not have full access to internet, but like a sophisticated intranet where they can sort of like get access to that knowledge. I agree with you.
A
Like,
library. Like you go to a library. You ever been to a library internet? That's very restrictive. You can't. You can't. I used to go to the library a lot after school when I was younger, and it's super restrictive. Like you can't do like Wikipedia, like
right.
maybe YouTube, maybe some place on YouTube. Like it's just very strict, but at least it's giving you enough to like, oh,
Yeah.
I can learn. You know what I mean? Like there's enough there that you can work with someone.
Yeah.
And that's at least that's where I look at.
No, I
Um,
I
you
agree
know,
with you. Like,
mm,
this is the whole thing. I would say there'll be tiers of access. It's like, hey,
of
yeah.
course, but within reason, within reason. I see where you're going, but yeah, within reason.
Oh,
Um, no, but yeah, so to go to further into how I even got into more tech.
yeah.
Um, so I went upstate New York for college, Rochester Institute of Technology, and that was my first time learning programming. I went for a degree in IT, so programming, networking, just in general, learning concepts of how to build things. It was rough. It was rough mostly because I wasn't first. I didn't like school ever in my life.
Okay.
Even when I was like in pre-K, my dad was like, I hated school. It's weird. But I enjoyed learning. I guess I didn't like the restrictive part of school. I didn't like that I was forced to do certain things. I enjoy being curious and like just going off whatever, I think, and oh, let's find out about this. Let me read this book on this. Like I'm right now, I'm a big book reader. I do like 24 books a year. I do a lot of audiobooks. And I tend to like force myself to break genres. I tend to kind of go like if I like I'm reading, I just finished reading a book, or I'm about to start a book on memory. It's called Moonwalking with Einstein, and it's all about like memory competitions and like how techniques to improve your memory. The book came out, I believe, 10 years ago. But I am a big proponent of, or a person that loves to like just go after like, oh, this seems like a curious subject. Let's read about this. Let's go about this. And so I digress. So that's part of my personality. So going back to school, I ended up graduating. Thank God, Lord. Graduating, and then I was the Great Recession at the time, so it was very hard to find a job. I went into consulting, I went into consulting, and eventually, I ended up somehow on Wall Street, and I worked for like, and ended up working for UBS, and then HSBC, and then after HSBC, I started getting the itch of like, yo, man, you're working for all these like tech companies, or sorry, these banks. Why don't you start building your own stuff? Like, why aren't you building your own stuff? Like, I had always had this itch of like, why don't you just start? And this is when apps were taking off. This is when everyone's trying to build their own app. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody and their mother was like, oh, build an app.
Looking at Flappy Bird like, that could be me. It's like
everybody and their mother was trying to do that. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, why don't I have this job? Why don't I just take the chance, like, on the side? So I ended up being a part of this thing called Founders Institute, which is a pre-accelerator. I'm trying to summarize this really fast because there's a lot.
Look,
take my time.
Hey, look, this is the thing. Like, if you really want to accelerate, by all means. But like, there's stuff in there, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so I'll go a little more detail. So Founders Institute, if anyone wants to check it out, it's a pre-accelerator worldwide. What they do is like I want to say it's a 10 to 15 week boot camp, sort of like Survivor.
So you had to build alliances and everything like that. Okay.
What I mean by that is every week you have to pitch. So they come in there, you have to force you to incorporate. And every week you have to pitch, and judges, depending on your pitch, depending on how like you seem committed to the program, you could stay in the program or they kick you out. You have like a point system.
Yeah.
They also force you to incorporate halfway. So there's no like, oh, I kind of want to do this. It's like, no, you're doing this. And then you sign a warrant that sort of forces you to pool all your equity together. So everyone has stake in each other's company. So whenever someone does well and they want to buy back the warrant, everyone gets compensated from that. The mentors, the entrepreneurs, and the person running the class, or the persons running the class. So that was one of my first forays into like entrepreneurship. They taught me everything from like getting a team, how to approach entrepreneurship in general, building technology. I met my future business partner who I work with currently there. I still have some friends from there. But it was very intensive. It was like really like, if you met, it was very intensive. And I encourage anyone who thinks they're curious about entrepreneurship to go to check it out. Excuse me, just because if you go through that, I know that you actually wanted to be an entrepreneur. Whether or not you'll be successful is another story. Whether or not it's for you is another story. But
I have to ask, what was the sort of biggest mind shift or mindset change for you when you started to like basically go from, okay, corporate on this course to like, go, wow.
The biggest mind shift for me is I guess action. Like you have to move, you have to just pursue. Like you can, I think in a lot of corporate settings, it's more about sitting down, let's have a discussion, let's plot this out. There's a lot more wiggle room for you to just like, talk, so to speak, and strategize. And I'm not saying startups don't strategize. I'm saying it's more about strategize, action, the iterative loop that you need that iterative loop in startups and in software development. Way more than I think I needed in, when I was working for a big bank. Big banks also tend to be a lot slower in technology. They're always years behind, many years behind.
You say years, I say decades. Come on.
and the reason why is they're trying to stay secure, Yeah. And so, so the biggest shift for me was like action. Someone gives you an intro, I will like someone give me an intro today, I will more than likely text or message that person that day. Like let's go. It's about action. You want to be the person that just gets things done, like and learns, iterate. So that's the big thing that I took out of one of the bigger things that I took out of that. And so at the time, because I'm going to make a very long story short, at least there, we built an app, didn't have any customers. We didn't know what we were doing. But what I was always sort of, and even today, what I was always sort of targeting is gamers. Like I've been a gamer all my life, been playing video games, console, PC all my life. And so I was trying to build at the time a recommendation engine for gamers. And like we would basically have it integrate their Android library, I think at the time, PlayStation and Xbox, I believe at the time. And this was 2013, I want to say. So we were, and at the time, I had a team. I was able to scrounge up a team through family, friends, kind of thing. But, when you're building something, I'll put it like this. You're supposed to fall and fail a couple times because you don't know what you're doing exactly, and then you're supposed to fall. And I did. I did with that initial team. And so from there, we kept sort of iterating on like, how can we build a gaming utility for gamers? And the next thing we said is like, hey, how about we build like this news recommendation site based off the games you play? So if, hey, I play a lot of Overwatch, we'll always give you Overwatch news. And what I learned from that experience, two things. The first thing I learned is you cannot predict how people are going to use your application. We basically like gave them like, so to speak, like it was a web page that showed like search for a game, and they started searching for everything but games. It was just really interesting. Like I couldn't anticipate what they were searching for. It was just so different. And these are gamers too. It's not like, it's not like Joe who doesn't play video games. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was one of the things I learned. I'm trying to remember the second. The second thing I learned was actually how people look for news is they go generally to a site or somewhere, and then they click on news that pertains to them, usually, as opposed to receive, like they don't necessarily go out of their way looking for the news for a particular game per se at the time. At least that's the behavior I observed at that time. So we were doing the opposite. Like we were trying to say, oh, you only want to see this news. And they're like, no, I just want to see all of the news. And if this happens to be a game I care about, then I'll click on it. So we're sort of going against gamer behavior at the time. So that had, some users didn't really go as far. And then we had this other crazy idea to like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could have all my friends in one big friends list? Wouldn't it be great? Like all my Xbox and PlayStation friends and even my Steam friends in one play. This is pre-Discord, by the way. And so we started building that. We literally started building that. By then, I will put it like this: the team that I was with sort of whittled away for various reasons. We've been working together for a while. Just people change. It's life. But we were still obsessed with like, yo, this is a great idea. Like a universal friends list. This makes sense. Then Discord happened.
Oh, come on. Like, it's like, you're like, yeah, we got a great eye. Oh, son of a bitch. Why? Why, God? Why? Smite that company off the face of the earth. It's like, damn you, Discord. Damn you to heck. Come on. Like, you. Wait.
What was hilarious?
This, right? How long were you working on it? Then Discord came along.
So we even started working after Discord because we had integration with different platforms. We believed that we could show some sort of, we believed that we could beat them despite that fact. But I would say overall, we worked on that. Trying to think of good time. Give me one second. I actually can give you the exact time I actually worked on it. Almost 3 to 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, probably more like 3. But what I found interesting about it is Discord. I'm sorry, Slack.
Yeah.
Which came up prior to Discord. We used, and I loved it. I was like, it changed my startup life. Like Slack was the best thing. Like, and then we looked at Discord and we're like, all it is a copy of Slack, blah blah. We're gonna be fine. And then we realized, no, that it's not just a copy. They really understand their customer. They understood their customer enough to expand at super fast. And now Discord is its own, like, it's gaming, but it's bigger than gaming. You know what I mean? It's like you have a community, more than likely gonna be on Discord, more than Slack.
Indeed. But I was about to say, with like when I hear the gamer market, right? Like gamers are like you're a weird breed, because the reason why I say this, okay, look, gamers, when I look at a gamer, they are some of the most obsessed, driven, focused people on one particular area, one game, like there's no tomorrow. And then they become the most fickle people in a blink of an eye. Like
they're very passionate. They're very passionate. If they love something, they're very passionate if they hate something. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, and they'll go out of their way to tell you they like it, or they go out of their way to tell you they hate it.
Yeah.
They'll dogpile stuff, and they're an interesting bunch, like, and I would say I'm a gamer, so I'm a part of that group. It's just, they're very interesting, and they're very, they're so
you know what I mean, though. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's, as soon as you lose interest in something, you're like, what about this? Meh. It's like
I don't care anymore. Yeah. It's what I decided to take on, which is building this utility for gamers, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting group of people. So that's where the challenge. I think part of it is for me, and I guess my business partners, is like we. I'll speak for more for myself. I would say we enjoy the challenge, and I think my business partners do too. But me, I enjoy the challenge of like trying to solve someone's problem and trying to deeply understand that person. Um, some people would say like, what's the word for it? Some people would describe me as not compassionate. Well, I guess some people would describe me as compassionate, but more of like I can feel, or I try to understand someone's feelings, which I guess is compassion. Um, and and I like to take that and like really get into the minds of that customer or that person and understand who they are and how they feel. So then I can better not just help them. Well, there's marketing part, that's a great for marketing, but also like really help them. Like, what is the issues that they have in their lives? How can I show them something that would improve their lives? And move them to either be, in our case, in the latest application, be a better financially, or just better, you know. And so yes, so I say all that to say, because you say gamers are an interesting breed. Yes, and that's what makes it a challenge to build for around gamers and for gamers, because they're different than most customers, I would say. And so going along the line, just going down the timeline a bit. So eventually, at this time, when I was building these different applications, I was going in and out of different startup jobs. Somehow I landed in a job at a trade floor at a French bank, Sociale Generale.
Oh.
And that was an interesting experience because I've never been on a trade floor before. And I was dealing with traders and learning the financial markets, and cryptocurrency and Bitcoin was just taking off, or just now becoming part of the lexicon.
Yeah.
And this is the first initial jump, right? And so I was seeing that. Then Acorns is when everyone's, Acorns was taking off. Robinhood was taking off.
Oh.
Coinbase was taking, all these different apps were taking. And I'm like, this is really an interesting space. And I was just learning. I just started, I opened up my 401k. I was just really understanding what stocks are and buying crypto and fractional shares and bonds. And I'm like, this is I never would have bumped into this world if I didn't have this job. So one day I was playing video games and I was looking at my savings account. I was like, yo, my savings account is not looking too great. But I always had this habit of playing video games to like sort of decompress after work. Like as soon as I got off of work, I would just go play for like 30 minutes to an hour, like just to like decompress. My job was very stressful. And I was like, you know what? This same habit of me playing video games would be awesome with if I could just like put money away at the same time. Like, what if I could what if me playing video games helped me solve financial problems that I had? It was this really interesting, sort of discombobulated thought at the time. But knowing the history of, you kind of know that I was working in finance and building gaming apps, it sort of was inevitable if you look back, sort of.
Okay.
So I spoke to my business partner. Business partner was like, all right, man, we kind of have experience building different apps, right, in the gaming sector. Let's see if we can find some people that would prove, like, we need to find an early group of people that would want to do this. Like, we don't want to just jump into this. Gamechat is sort of sunsetting. We got to figure out like if this is the move to make. Initially we decided like, oh, why don't we build it on like with Xbox? Like, you connect your Xbox, you connect your bank account, and you save based off how long you play on Xbox. We did an event or two, and we tried several different things, and we found out like Xbox was not the right way to go. So we started building it on Steam. I don't know if you're familiar with Steam.
I know I've heard of it, but I'm not a gamer. Like, it's like Steam. I think it's a platform where you can just buy games.
Yes, you can buy games, you can chat with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a PC gamer, 99.9% of the time you're going to be using Steam. They have great sales. Their technology is pretty good. There's also like Epic and other stores, but Steam is, and what's cool thing about Steam actually has a bigger player base than Xbox and PlayStation because the barrier of entry is pretty low. You could have a decent PC that doesn't cost as much as an Xbox or PlayStation, and there's a lot of indie games. There's so many benefits to Steam. if I'm an early game developer, you're going to want to develop on the PC because it costs less and you're going to be able to market better to a community that's more receptive to you, which is usually the PC community. So a lot of these indie games start off on PC, they garner a following, people love them, and then they port out to PlayStation, Xbox. So a lot of the like small indie studios like, oh, let's build it on PC. That's the best way to do it. Better than mobile because at least PC, you're expecting to pay money. Mobile, 99% of the time, people do not want to pay money.
Yeah, like this is the thing, mobile, it's crafty. Like how they do some things with that.
Yeah. So they have to come up with schemes of way of getting money out your pocket. But with PC, if I'm playing a PC game, we are more likely to think, oh, we're gonna pay for it. Like you're expecting to pay something. With mobile, it's just the way mobile has been set up, and that may change over the years. Most of the time, you don't expect to pay. Most of the time, and most people will go out of the way not to pay, especially if you're an Android user, especially.
What was that? Oh,
Especially.
you're breaking up. Huh?
I know. I won't say I know this from experience. Well, I do know this from experience, like working on both platforms and interacting with both types of users. Yeah, you're less likely to pay.
Okay. Michael, get out.
So we decided to start building it on Steam, right? And we had a lot of feedback from initial people saying, hey, why don't you have this on Steam? Why don't you have this on Steam? So so we decided to move it over to Steam. And one of the things we decided to do is like do a real MVP, like really do it like, launch, like first launch, learn as much as possible, and then, build the different features. And so one of our things was like, how do we launch fast? So we started to build a small MVP just enough, put it in front of the existing client base that we had from previous events and things we built, and see if anyone would join. We got some people to join.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. So I'll break it down how it works and how Lootfeed, what Lootfeed looks like.
Yeah,
so
I'm just curious, like when you launch, how you can like adjust into the increase, like if it took off, how you could adjust for the capacity, if you get what I mean.
So we did a lot of unscalable things. I'll put it like that. We made it so we if we had like 1 million customers, or even like 150 the first day, we wouldn't be able to. What I learned also from all the things I've built and just being around startups and learning and just launch. If you launch and you have the problem of not being able to handle capacity, that is the greatest problem to have. If you launch and no one cares, that's a bigger problem. That is a bigger problem. And I think people are so scared to launch because what if I can't handle it? If you can't handle it, that is the best. You are in a good, there are good problems and bad problems, like life. Yeah. Like I realized you got to categorize things. There's bad problems and good problems. Good problems are people want your product so much you can't give it to them. But what tends to happen is people don't realize, like they're thinking that's going to be the problem, but in reality, their marketing is the problem or other things the problem. Like they just need to put it out there and see how the market reacts. And that's another thing that I learned and learning, actually, to be honest, is you need to learn and iterate. Get to that cycle. Back to what I learned and found is you need to get to that cycle faster, experiments faster. You need to figure that out, and not be so cautious on when to launch, or be so cautious on if this is going to work. Just put it in front of people. My business partner, it was hilarious, and I'll go into how the app works. My business partner and I would have arguments about different things, and then when we put it in front of the people decided. There's no we could say. The data told us. We would have argument maybe back and forth about, I don't believe this thing's gonna work. I don't think they're gonna do it. And then like they did something totally different sometimes. They surprised both of us, and we're like, wow. I think that's one of the things I encourage anyone who's listening. I encourage, it's don't try to be a Steve Jobs. And even Steve Jobs, to be honest, I read his, book. He wasn't Steve Jobs. It was the people around him that he gathered ideas from. Let's be honest. But even that whole approach, it works in certain circumstances, but a lot of the time with software development in particular, it's the iterative approach. Iterative approach. So going back into Lootfeed. So how Lootfeed works is essentially what we do is we connect, you go into the website. Right now it's a web app. You go into the website, you connect your Steam account, then you connect your bank account, and you choose between 25 cents, 50 cents, $1, $2 for every 1 hour that you play a video game. Once you've chosen, most people pick $1. Once you've chosen that, from that day forward, we are looking at how many hours you play video games. On Thursday night to Friday morning, that's the save point. We look at how many hours you've played. Say for example, you played 6 hours this week at $1 an hour. We'll say, hey, you saved $6. You played 6 hours. Here's an email. Go to your dashboard. We withdraw that money from your checking, move it to a separate savings account for you on our end. And then next week, we say, hey, see you next week. And then we also, what's cool is we shame you if you don't play video games. Like, oh, you should play more video games. You're not saving. We're like the only app out there or the only organization that will shame you into playing video games. I love that actually. So that's what we do on a weekly basis. Even that, just that, what I just explained, that weekly incremental, like, hey, we're going to do this every week, was a huge argument for my business, like in my company, because like, people are not going to want to do this every week. What if it's $100? What if it's $200? We went back and forth because we really didn't know, like we truly didn't know. And then when we put it in front of our customers, we had some whales at one point saving over $100 a week for a period of time.
Because I could imagine like a service like yours, like if I was a Twitch streamer, streamer, yeah, like if I had a service like yours, like going, okay, take this amount, like, yeah, you might be getting X in and then Y is going out. It's still like, yeah, I'm earning cash, but I'm still putting a little bit aside as I like stream on a live stream. And my God, and some of those guys, they do stream for a long time.
Some of them do. So yeah, so it's interesting. We have 1 or 2 streamers on our platform, and they really like it. There are some things we're working on or have worked on that we're having some trouble trying to figure out how to, as far as go approach that market, because the way we gather data is sort of, how do I go this and say this not too technical? The way we gather data, it takes us a day or so to gather the data. So we don't necessarily have live data to give them every day per se. We always look back and give them data because we collect it once a day.
Right.
What's up?
I was going to say, with that data, like, is that another sort of revenue stream for you guys as well?
So,
no.
So I would love it to be a revenue stream. Yeah. We have learned some interesting things. We learned the seasonality of gameplay when it comes to gamers. Christmas, that tends to be an uptick. When it's cold, it's uptick. When it's summer, it's downtick. So we noticed that. But one piece of advice that I heard that I've taken to heart, and I actually heard this at Founders Institute, they said, don't talk about selling data until someone asks to buy it. And so far, I haven't seen someone that's interested yet. I'm sure they exist. I'm sure we can, but the opportunity hasn't presented himself in a way where I can go, oh, hey guys, we have this data here that we've been collecting, and we understand these gamers that, So yes, to answer your question, eventually, I believe we can. That would be an interesting revenue stream. One other thing I forgot to mention is we are a $1 a month service. We do take $1 a month, not from your savings, but from your account. Pretty traditional. Acorns, a lot of our even competitors, direct and indirect competitors, all usually take $1 a month. We do also have a 1% fee as far as like the weekly withdrawal, but within the beta, which is on right now, we don't take that. We're really trying to understand our customer more and more, and build our beta out. So just to let everyone know, because I forgot to mention that in the sign up process. You actually agreed to that in the sign up process. So yeah, so it's been really interesting. We launched over a year ago now. And one of the interesting things, as I said before, the seasonality of people playing video games, that's been interesting. The amount of people, how much people save. The average person saves about $260 on our platform. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect it. You don't necessarily think that will be the case when you're building it. But what I would say, what's been beautiful for me, at least as someone who's been building different apps and getting mixed responses, is when someone messaged me and said, hey, thank you, you guys exist because I had enough money to buy this car I really needed. And without you, I spent the savings I had. I spent all my, like, I think he was in the process of losing his job or something. And I was like, he's like, thank you. Like, he was in some like dire straits and he was like, I forgot about it. I forgot. Like, and I just knew, like, it to me was like, wow, like, took me a while to get here, but we finally have something that has helped someone in a situation where if we didn't exist, they would not be in a good spot.
No.
And that kind of, hit me like, wow, that's cool. Like, I want to continue to build things like this. I want to continue to build upon this and figure out how we could really help more and more people. What's another interesting thing, and this is hilarious to me, and you'll find this funny, is when we did in-person events before the pandemic. Actually, no, I would say, yeah, just when the pandemic was about to hit and we didn't know, we did an in-person event. One of the things we noticed is we'll have a booth and a couple will come up to us and say, hey, usually the woman in the couple would say, hey, you're always playing video games. Why don't you sign up for this service so we can start putting money towards something for me or like for us? So essentially, like, a way of justifying why you're playing video games for your significant other, which was something I never, ever thought about in the conception of this at all.
Look, if you can get away with any excuse, come on. Come on now. You know what I mean? There are going to be guys that, hey, look, I play, look, kids, college fund, look. Yeah, 18 years in the future. You have no idea how much Call of Duty I had to play to get your ass to college.
So it's funny. One guy's saving for a trip to Japan, which, he's going to take him a while, but he's doing it. And I'm sure he's using it as justification to his wife. And so it's that, once again, that's the journey of discovery. Like, you discover things over time that you didn't initially think, at least I didn't, that would be the reason why someone would sign up for this, or even that that a couple dynamic would even be something we could potentially market to, which we're still exploring. What I like to think, I'm a big documentary person too. I'm sort of all over the place. Big documentary person too. So I like documentaries. And I spoke to a gentleman who created a documentary for a video game, longer story. And I said, hey, it was a great documentary. And I said, how did you know to create this dynamic? Like, you sort of had a villain and you sort of had these guys. And it was like, how did you know to create this dynamic? He's like, what's interesting about these documentaries, he says, he just starts filming and the story unfolds. And every time I think I know what the story is, it just keeps evolving. And then I saw other interviews with other documentarian directors, and they say similar things. Like, they go there for one thing, like, hey, I'm gonna film, watch these seagulls, and then it becomes like, it becomes this other interesting thing. It's like you're uncovering something, Yeah. And I like to believe entrepreneurship, and especially technology, is sort of that too. We're uncovering people's desires and what they really want over time.
Yeah, I would say with regards to any business, like any entrepreneurial scheme, because you're introducing a new life form into the world, okay, it might start out on paper as one thing, but as like circumstances, time, like the perfect example, what comes to mind, YouTube, for example. Okay, started out, we're gonna do a dating like dating website. Yeah, we're gonna pay like they paid women $20 to sign up to the site, and not one woman went anywhere near it. And it was like, okay. And then basically people are going, huh, video. You host video. Yeah. I need to host this video, like get that link out. And yeah, people just uploading random stuff bit by bit by bit. What YouTube was on paper resembles nothing what it's like today. You know what I mean? You could say it was going to be like some like video version of Tinder, maybe, but no. It evolved, it grew, and like, yeah, it took on a life of its own. But like, this is the thing, like with all sort of tech businesses, there's one thing which really brings that spark of life into it: funding, finance. How did you get to that? Because look, you've been at it for a year, and like, this is the thing, like getting that investment, and like, yes, that sort of burn rate, what comes with any tech company to like sort of sustain. Like, how did you manage to like secure funding for that?
So interesting thing, we are pre-seed right now.
Oh,
So yes, for pre-seed, I do, just a full disclaimer, I do have a day job.
yeah.
So I'm working on this nights and weekends, trying to get it to a place in which I can raise funding.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to hit certain milestones, like, you know, we get this many users saving this much, so we can be more appealing to a investor. Um, Due to circumstances right now, investors are pulling back, so that changes our paradigm a little bit off for us. But we're going to continue to try to hit these certain marks to then be more appeasing to these investors. So I've done a lot of what I've done in the last 9 to 10 years, for better or for worse,
Mm-hmm.
bootstrapping and figuring it out. Some people may say, "Oh, that's horrible," but I learned a lot of lessons losing my money. And I would say, if anyone gives me their money, I'm going to be very careful on how I would use it. And I know now a lot more than I did. You know, so I like to believe, and you know, some people may disagree or agree with me, that you know, I took, you know, saving, I took money, I took time that I had outside of my job, and I just continue to hustle and try to figure this out, and I will continue to do that.
Mm.
And the thing about me is, I'm going to do this regardless of if you give me money or not. Like, that's how I really believe. Like, I want to build this technology, I want to do this. So whether or not, you know, I get 100 no's, I'm going to continue to build. So I'm not, you know, I'm not an entrepreneur that's not going to be like, "Oh, see you later. Didn't work out, I didn't get the money." Like, I didn't get the million, see you later. Like, I'm going to continue to build it, especially when I know there are people being, you know, that have benefited from this. And that's my perspective on it. And you know, everyone has different perspectives on it, as far as raising and not raising, bootstrapping and not bootstrapping. One of the things that I, you know, actively are thinking about and trying to figure out is, I know, as you know, they say about in 2020, there was a big push for minorities to receive more VC funding. They were given, like, you know, a lot of, you know, I think you saw it, a lot of VCs and a lot of angel investors were like, "Hey, if you know someone who has a startup and, you know, they're minority, I'm willing to, you know, look at them and help." That push has subsequently changed because the world has changed. Um, and one of the things that how do I say this? One of the things that I would like to, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here because I had an entire point. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, no worries.
One of the things that I wish that push wasn't just for 2020. I really wish that was more sustained. It tends to, you know, these a lot of these causes unfortunately tend to fade, which sucks. But I would say I wish that was still the push. That's one of the things I wish that was more sustained. Like, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that I would argue are great entrepreneurs, or building great things,
Mm.
but because they aren't, you know, maybe even located in Silicon Valley, or not even just location, because location I think is less and less a problem, because they don't, how do I say this? I'm trying to think of the more political way of what I'm gonna say.
Look, look, say it in the political way, just because, hey, the future's the future, and like I don't want that to sort of like be like some type of hindrance to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How do I say this? I wish it wasn't 2020 wasn't just a phase. It was more of a reoccurring theme within a lot of whether major VCs or angels. They constantly were like, hey, let's look for these startups that are run by minorities and or women, because they tend to be overlooked. A lot of the VC money goes to white males. We know this, everyone knows this. And so, as if you're not a white male, um, there tends to be a lot more hoops and things to climb in order for you to be seen and or for you to be heard. And so, one of the things I hope in my lifetime that changes, and we saw some significant strides, and we're seeing strides, but that has to be sustained. That has to be. We have to continually push that, continually. Like that has to be a continual thing.
Like this is the thing. Now, okay, this is where I would say
What's
I
up?
I agree with you, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say there is a distinct advantage now in America today for like many sort of like people from an ethnic background like to succeed. Because okay, in the UK, when it comes to sort of like black wealth and it's it's there, but it's not nowhere near the sort of levels it is in America.
Yeah.
Now, okay, one of the things which I'd say is a huge barrier to entry for in the realms of tech for a number of people like coming through. Now, for example, if we take Zuckerberg, right? His family and everything like this, and like not just his family, but his family, and everything like this before the sort of seed investment goes down, it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
need 50K, I need 50K.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
his parents sorted that out and they got that money together before it got to even the VC stage. So he
Yeah.
like relocated to Silicon Valley. And when it got to that sort of next stage, VC money came into it. And like, yes,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
before that smiling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's a case of there is a need which I think will be filled over in the States because there is quite a large, growing, wealthy sort of uh, elite, for the want of a better words. But yeah, it's just gaining access to these people to then, like, you know what I mean, go, yeah, this is what I'm about. So get in on the ground floor. So it's sort of filling that space where other family members and like friends of families can't do it at, you know what I mean, because of
Yeah.
social economic things here and social economic things there.
Yeah.
But I think there is a huge potential for growth, expansion over the next sort of 10 years. Well, like definitely over the next, let's go with 12 years, because I think we're going into a recession for the next two, possibly three. And then like from there.
Yeah, I agree with you that. So I had an interesting conversation with a black entrepreneur from the UK,
Mm.
and I asked him. I said, "Hey, where do you think you'll be? Like, if you had to pick a place, where do you feel like you'll be more likely to succeed?" He says, "America by far." He's like, "You guys have Oprah. You guys have like you have people. Like, what's the equivalent of Oprah in the UK?" And I was like,
That was a lady named Trisha at one point, and that was, whew, I'm gonna say a good five, well, maybe 10 years ago.
"Yeah,
It's been a long time.
yeah." He said he's like, "We don't have the equivalent of like." Um, the network per se and like the people that are at that level where
Mm.
you guys have that. And I was like, oh, never. I'm American and I have the American blinders on, so I don't know that. I didn't know that. And I was like, that's very interesting perspective. if you compare the two. One of the other things that I think there's a challenge for still Americans, and maybe a challenge for UK, I don't know. The median income or median net worth for minority, particularly Black households is still not like, it's still like kind of a,
Yeah.
and I would say there's more of this. You could argue there's like more people accessing the middle class in some regard when it comes to technology, but that still has not, that when I've read, seen the studies, it's still not the greatest. It's not, it's still going down. I will put it like that, in comparison to white households. And so when you think about like when I went to college, and I think about the people that went to college and went home, got a job to just support their family. You know what I mean? Like, just, I knew a lot of people like that, Black people especially. And there's some people in the projects were like, yo, I'm going home just to, like, this is for my family. And they don't have the ability necessarily to take chances like they want to. Like, they're like, I gotta get this job at Google. I gotta get this job here because I just wanna, my family's back. Like, they supported me. I gotta. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like their wiggle room to take these chances, the wiggle room to go after these potential opportunities and build things. It changes because of they are sort of supporting their entire family unit, so to speak. And that's and that's, how do I say this? Even as a Cuban, I know a lot of people that immigrated here and do the same thing. Hispanic people do that all the time. And so I just think there's a level of complexity there that as a minority in this country that other groups don't necessarily have. And it's not, it is what it is. It's part of America, so to speak. But it does make it more challenging for the next, minority entrepreneur.
Like, I have to ask this. Now, this is the thing. Do you sometimes feel like you are now a pathfinder for the people, the generations which come after you with regards to what you're doing?
Do I feel like I'm a pathfinder? That's a good question. I would like to believe that my actions are leading for more people to come after me. That more people could look at what I've done, and I'm not gonna say I've done a lot. To be honest, I feel like I've done just enough. But I feel like enough people could look after me, be like, I can do it. I'm very humble, man. How I look at my life, I'm very, very humble in general. And some people are like, what? I'm like, yo, because to me, there's always stuff that you can learn, to me. And I will always be that way. I will always be the person, no matter how much I learn, no matter how much success I achieve in life, there is always stuff you can learn as a human. And I pray to God I stay humble like that in my entire life. Because, I believe, people, I've seen people achieve success, and I'm not going to name names. Some of my music figures that I've seen achieve success, and they become these people that I'm like, who are you? I remember your first album. I remember who you were. Like, at least I, distantly remember who you were. And now, who are you? Like, are you humble? Are you able to, be the, like, are you able to sit down with people and like talk to us? Like,
I wonder who it could be talking.
I won't mention who the music people are, but but I mean, to be honest, I think staying humble, understanding where you came from, understanding, like, I don't stand by myself. I stand on the shoulders of my grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles, people before me. You gotta understand that that's, these people put in work that I will never see. You and I will never see and even understand. So for me, I always have to be like, I have to attribute some of the stuff I've done because I stand on their shoulders. I have to. Yeah. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, because this is the thing, you are an interesting cat. And the reason why I say this, okay, look, you could have very easily, like, gone to college. Like, yeah, oh yeah, I've got my degree. Great. Now I'm graduating. Oh, UBS, HSBC, either one of those companies, like either one of those banks is like, hey, it's pretty much up there. Good God, most probably in the top, so it's in the top 10 for sure. You know what I mean? HSBC might even be number one. But you could have easily went, okay, corporate life for me. Slip into like cruise control. Yeah, six figures, six figures, six figures. And like, you know what I mean? And then promotion and like kept doing the game. But like, you know what I mean? You went, okay, look, I want to do more. I feel I must be doing more. I need to do more. Start your own, like, you know what I mean? Learning how to start your own company. And like, you know what I mean? As an entrepreneur, well, like this, like, isn't easy, challenging, tough. Every day you're facing some form of discomfort on a daily basis, stress on another level, and then trying to work out, okay, picking up skills you thought, what, I never would need that. And like, look, I'm a strong believer in, if you master marketing, you master pretty much, you can, like, everything else can fall into place like that. But that's just me. But so many other things you had to build upon, and you're forcing yourself down the road, because you could just went, yeah, I'm good, I'm easy. But you keep pushing yourself. What is that thing? What gives you that drive? What is that thing? What, you know what I mean? Brings you back to the front again and again.
You know, it's gonna get a little personal. I think about my father. He would always say to me, and he still says to me, he's like, I'm the reason. And he, when I was younger, used to tell me like, oh, you should start your own company. You should start your own business. Like 7, 8. Like I'm talking about like, I remember him saying in the car, and not really like, like, all right, Dad, I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was older that I was like, I should. Why don't I? Like, what's different about me versus someone else? Like, why shouldn't I? Like, it wasn't, he kind of instilled those, he like put it in, like, what is the words for? He like put those seeds in.
Mm.
And he's like, whenever you're frustrated, you should blame me because I did it. And I'm like, what? That's what he said to me like a couple of times. I'm like, what? And so I think that's part of it. I honestly think I often, at one point, or I'll be full disclosure. I see it, I go to therapy. At one point with a previous therapist, I really try to dissect what was it. And I think it's, in my opinion, my theory of entrepreneurship or even ambition, there is an unevenness. And I like to read biographies, and I try to read at least one biography every year, or an autobiography. And what you notice with people that are ambitious, there is an uneven, like there's something that wasn't right. Sometimes it's with your parents, sometimes it wasn't enough approval. It's something, this unevenness that they're constantly trying to adjust, and they constantly push. And sometimes it gets out of control, and sometimes they become ambitious to the point where they hurt themselves. We've seen those stories too. Sometimes there's enough of a realization, and there's enough people in their lives to tell them like, hey, this is enough, or this is, you're okay. Right? We've seen both of these stories. I'm sure we can name different people. We've seen ambition go off the rails. Like they were okay, and then they just like, and cycle downwards. And so I believe ambition, for better or for worse, comes from this unevenness, right? That a person has, whether it's from their childhood or growing up. And it's just how you compensate that unevenness will determine, how much you push, and how little you push, and how healthy it is. Because at times it can be unhealthy. At times you won't be satisfied with what's in front of you. You won't be satisfied with what you have achieved. So how as a person do you say, do I stop? Do I say, no, I'm not gonna, or you take it for granted, which is another thing that's not necessarily good either. That happens too. Like when you take, oh, I'm married, I'm this, I'm that. Take it all for granted. I'm trying to get this. Like you just completely push that away where you really should breathe that in and take it in, because that's beautiful that you're able to find someone. That's beautiful that you live in this house. You're like, you know what I mean? So I guess answering your question, yes, that I feel like there's this unevenness a little bit within me that I've still, and I honestly, to be honest, I'm still examining why. And I think that's more of a lifelong thing for me, like really examining why. I do think it's a little my father. I do think it's a little bit of the unevenness of always like trying to compensate in my life. And I also think it was the vision that I saw and saying, I'm reading all these books, these sci-fi books, and I don't see people like me. I'm using this technology, and I look at the creators, they tend to not look like me. Like just all of them, you know, I remember looking at, it's gonna sound really funny. Looking at the creator of like Lord of the Rings, looking at the creator of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Looking at the creator of, I'm trying to think of like Unix, and them all looking sort of like, not saying they all look the same, but they ought to look a certain way. And it's like, how come no one looks like me? You know what I mean? Like, what? I want that to change. One of the beautiful moments that I will say, and we'll move on to another topic, but is when I watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, first, Miles Morales is Black, Hispanic, awesome. Like let's go. That's me. But to see that and knowing kids were dressing up like him and knowing like that's who their Spider-Man is, Peter Parker's still Spider-Man, but this is their like generational Spider-Man, so to speak. Like that's who they'll relate to. It's like, that's awesome. And people would say, oh, it's just a Spider-Man character. It's like, no, it's not just a Spider-Man character. It's a hero to them. Like their hero could look like them. There's a Junot Diaz quote. He talks about, if you don't see yourself in the media, so to speak, I'm paraphrasing his quote. If you don't see yourself in the mirror, you become a monster. If you don't see yourself in the media you consume, I'm paraphrasing this a lot, by the way.
Okay.
If you don't see yourself, and he sort of made it like a vampire, like you're looking at yourself and you're trying to look for yourself, but you don't see yourself. So you, therefore, he's like saying that you, so to speak, become a monster. You are like, you would start to look at yourself. Like, why don't I see myself? Where am I? Like, why don't I see myself in the media I consume? It's a very interesting quote. I'll send it to you later. It's a very interesting quote. So what are you gonna say?
Like this is the thing. Like with regards to like a character like Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic character. Into the Spider-Verse. Fantastic. Like, and yeah, I do agree. Yeah, bringing in a character like that, it's great. One of the things I feel sometimes in the grand scheme of the media and stuff like this, they get lazy with regards to.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. I agree.
So they will go, okay, they'll take this character who's been one way for like the longest time, and then they'll just change everything about that character.
I agree. Just pandering.
Keep the name and everything like this. And it's one of those things where you like go, you've just erased like this character's history so you could like tick a box. And like the whole thing is, you need to go out there and make the effort to build a new character, a new brand. It might not work because, yeah, that's the way it is. Sometimes it won't work. But if it does work, that's a new character that inspires people for the next generation and generations to come. It launches franchises. It becomes something valuable rather than sort of, I don't like tokenistic vibes of things because it becomes
I agree.
illness.
I agree. I totally agree with you. And I think we can like you and I and anyone could watch and be like, okay, this is not even a fleshed out character. Like this is you're just trying to pander to us. You're just trying to get our money. And
Yeah.
you're just trying to make, you make yourself look a certain way. And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And there are companies out there that are doing that. And I don't agree with that. So I do believe it's not just about like making that person a certain ethnicity to check a box. But I do believe expanding, like, bringing a character that we haven't seen. Like I'll give you a good example. I don't know if you've been watching Miss Marvel at all.
You know what? Like out of all of the stuff which has come, like out of, if we just go with the Disney Plus stuff which has come out of Obi-Wan and Miss Marvel, like I've been watching Miss Marvel. Obi-Wan has been
A little shaky, yeah, a little. I agree with you on that one. But Mrs. Marvel, like, just to see that. So I have a good friend of mine that's Asian, South Asian, and he was like saying this is the realistic depiction of this type of family. And I'm learning, like I have Muslim friends, and I'm like learning more about their culture and stuff. And like they even drop little subtle hints of like political things that happen to Muslims and like their struggles. And like she's flushed out. Like this is not just like, this is not, oh, we just want a Muslim, Indian, or Pakistani person. Boom. They're like, no, we're gonna flush her. This is her family. This is her community. This is who she is. This is what she looks for. She aspires to be a hero. That to me, that is what we want. That at least, that's what I want to see more of. Like, and to me, I am a what do you call it? A black male from New York City, right? And I want to see this person who is, our worlds couldn't be more different, so to speak. You know what I mean? So different. And I want to see this person succeed. I want to see what happens in this story. They made me care about this person. And with, what's this bracelet? Like, you want to know so much more. I need to find out who the writer is, because I think that's one of the more compelling shows I've seen in a while. Like, I'm actually like, what's happening next? What are you gonna say?
I was going to say, look, we live in exciting times at this present time. Look, okay, we might be on the edge of a thermonuclear war. We might be on the edge of like going to like a recession and like all of these things going on. But when it comes to certain things, I think, look, if the media is like, does take its time and like, you know what I mean, be a little bit bolder and like, yes, produce decent films and television shows and content and information which can help inspire like people, that is always going to be a good thing, in my opinion. Look, I don't know if you've watched the new Top Gun movie by any chance.
I literally was just about to watch it yesterday. I gotta try to watch it today or tomorrow.
Watch it in the biggest screen you can, if you are. And like, what I've got to say is, yeah, like Top Gun was a good movie. Top Gun Maverick is like a great, and it's a case of they went, okay, they presented a story, they actually went with a story, and like it was like, okay, fleshed out character, and away you go. And you're like, oh, okay, no problem. Look, everyone enjoyed it. Like Black Panther, yeah, fleshed out character, like,
fleshed out world,
yeah,
fleshed out world, yeah,
and went with it. Great. Now, like, this is the thing. Like, okay, even if you went with Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, like Marvel, you got to do a little bit better with the storytelling of that, because like if you've got to watch a whole TV series to actually understand where she's coming from, and look, don't get me wrong, like yeah, Scarlet Witch, great character, and you know what I mean, you understood her motivations, but you could have done that in the allotted time of the whole film where you did that, not rather than do like 6 hours beforehand, watch that. Yeah. That's bad storytelling.
Yeah.
But there is certain things where I go, yeah, be bold, be brave, whether that be in the entertainment industry, whether that be in an entrepreneur like realm, or just basically working your 9 to 5, or just being a family person. But you can't just like tick boxes. You can't just play it by the numbers, because when people start to do that, their lives become less rich. They are poorer for it. And the sort of opportunities which live out there, they will find themselves finding lacking in what they want, lacking in the opportunities which are presented out there to them. And look, I would say with like people like yourself, you, like, as I say, you are, I would say for the most part, I can't see you, even if this venture goes up in smoke, that will be the end for you. You'll be like, well, you know what? Fall down 7, get up 8, and you'll look to the next venture. So I wouldn't say you're going to be a person who will be lacking. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. I'll just keep going. But even this one, we have so many different ways of going. So we're talking about savings, right now, and we're talking on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of things we could do on a weekly basis. Dollar cost averaging, basically moving the money into different financial vehicles for the person that are valuable for them. We wanted to do crypto at one point. Probably hold off on that right now, but
yeah. How much is it worth? Less than it started with. Okay,
we're probably holding.
How much is it worth now? Don't stop. Don't even look at it.
Close your. Yeah. Delete the app. Delete the app.
It's a line going to the center of the earth. Oh my God.
But what I mean to say,
all the way to hell.
What I mean to say is that there is so savings. We always believed is the gateway to first. Oh, you could do this on a weekly basis. There's a lot of other things you could do. A lot of other investing, other things that you could do on a weekly basis. So we really believe there's a lot of wiggle room as far as like us expanding this, or even pivoting potentially. But I think savings, we are really trying to get more and more customers around savings, because we really think that's the bedrock of your financial journey, or even just being financially stable. You should have $1,000 savings. You should absolutely have it. If you don't have it, that's a problem. Another interesting thing that I like to talk about is the savings seesaw. A lot of the time, what happens is you get paid on a Friday, usually. Your money shows up in your checking account. You have sometimes you have an auto deposit into your savings. Sometimes, right? You spend money, you pay bills. Then you see something you like, or something happens. You're like, you know what? That money in my savings, it's just 2 clicks away. Click, move it over. Seesaw. You go back and forth. So you never really save because it's all on one screen. So what we do in Lootfeed is just in a different application, right? So it's not right next to your checking and savings right next to each other. A couple of financial advisors, when I spoke to them about it, they're like, yeah, that's one of the biggest problems is people just continually withdraw because they see it. They just, let me just put it over. Oh, it's just a couple hundred. Next paycheck I'll put even more, and it tends to not happen. It just, what I mean? It just doesn't happen. You just continually do this over and over. So we're hoping this habit of, of saving around your hobby could really incorporate. And so far, it's been pretty good. We're continually trying to get more and more customers. And if you know anyone who's a gamer who plays on PC, who has problems saving money, please tell them out. Go check out Lootfeed. Yeah, I mean that's where it stands at the moment. Now we love feedback too. If anyone's like, oh, you guys could go into this direction, or I know some people that at this particular game development firm that would love to work with you guys. I'm like, cool, we're open to the opportunity too. But yeah.
Time has flown. But, yeah,
it has flown.
I have to ask, like, with regards to, this is my final question. Now, where would you like this journey you're on to take you and your business partners, or just you personally?
That's a good question. Give me. I'm gonna do a. Are you familiar with Joe Rogan?
I am familiar with Joe Rogan. Yeah.
You familiar? You ever see the Elon Musk episode?
I did, like, I listened to it, but like, this is the thing. The first one was crazy. Second one, I'm not too sure where they went. But,
So
just
there's like he does these long pauses to think, and then he comes up with something profound usually. But he does like like if you ever watch it, anyone's watching this, watch those pauses. It's like long pauses, and you almost to the point where I was watching it or I was like listening to it, and I had to look at the phone and be like, is he still like thinking? So give me give me one Elon Musk pause on this one actually, because I need to think about this.
no worries. Like, I'll just sit here. Contemplate the universe.
Where would I like to lead me?
Still contemplating the universe.
So I would like it first I'll talk from a Lootfeed perspective and then from my perspective.
Yeah.
From a Lootfeed perspective, I would love for this to make, so right now, there is still this contingent of people that believe gaming is bad and causes children to do horrible things or young people to do horrible things. There's still that contingent that exists, right? Part of me believes that this could show maybe that contingent, maybe they can't be saved, but I'm thinking this can show the world that gaming, not only is it good for you for various other reasons, hand-eye coordination, not learning about different technologies and things, but it could also help you tackle financial issues in your life. It could also help you tackle other issues in your life. So we're sort of combating this whole movement that believes gaming is this horrible thing, just like they believe comics, just like they believe D&D was horrible. Same movement that believes all these things are horrible, and this add-on, this application will be able to say, hey, we are actually not only helping you, not only saying you can play video games like you normally do, but we're enforcing these positive habits that will help you financially in your future, and you will be better off in the future because you're enjoying your hobby, but you're enforcing it with positive habits. And I'm hoping years from now, they look back and say, okay, that was a day that I started saving and I was able to buy this, or I started investing and now I have this, or now you're able to do this, or now my children can do X. I couldn't figure out a way to enforce that the habit in other places in my life, but now I figured it out. So that's one of the things. So that's from a Lootfeed perspective. Like, I'm really hoping to see success stories out of this, like a lot of them.
Okay.
On my end, I want to look back and say, hey, I've contributed to society in a way that was positive. And I helped people, also Black people, but people. I helped move society forward. And really trying to think this out. And because of the sacrifices and things that I went through and did, society is now in a better place. And there's a little boy or girl who says, wow, this guy did it. Like, I can do it. I know I could. Like, he struggled. He went through all this. Like, that's inspiring to me. Like, that's like, I want to try. I want to go do it. I know all these things are against me. I know that I live here. I look like this. I'm my I don't make this much, but like, I know I can. And that's it.
Interesting. No doubt with your your can-do attitude, I got to say, most probably Mr. Non-Stop. Got that like Hamilton vibe around it. Yeah. Hey, we shall see. We shall see. Like, yeah, I've got to say, I would say with those like things, what you want for your business and basically what you want to help other people, these are noble qualities. And I think, you know what, like a little bit of work, a little bit of discipline behind it, and one hell of a journey. I'm sure you'll get there one day, Michael. I'm sure you will. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. Really do. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. This has been a great talk, man. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, this has been good content and good, good conversation. Which I think it has. But thank you.
It's been a great conversation, and like no doubt I'll get you back on in the future for sure.
For sure.
Yes, I dissect the world of media and comics and films and whatnot, all things and above. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on today. Can you tell the lovely people how they can find you out there on these interwebs?
So my name on LinkedIn is Michael L. Piggott. So you can find me there, Michael L. Piggott. There's many Michael Pigotts, but I'm the only one with the L in the middle. Also, you could find me on Twitter as Michael_Piggott. If you're interested in emailing me to talk about Lootfeed, it's Michael at lootfeed.com. That's LOOTFEED.com. And check us out at lootfeed.com. I would love to talk to you.
Excellent. I'll put all of the information into the show notes, into the description. So yes, track Michael down, talk to him, like learn how to save, and hey, maybe learn how to do your own startup. Get that inspirational spark as well. Boom. I'd like to say thank you to you, Michael. Also like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors out there who have stuck with us right to the very end. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Keep pushing forward, my friends. Peace. And we are